weirdos!
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, all you weirdos. Jim here, and this is my non-spoiler initial reaction to X-Men #1. The From the Ashes era is about to begin, and it's written by Jed MacKay with art by Ryan Stegman, and I like both of those fellers there. I'm a really big Ryan Stegman fan, so we'll get into this, and I'll tell you what I thought. Again, these are going to be non-spoilers, and this isn't a be-all, end-all. It's not a review, and I really, really hope that people don't just use what I'm saying to decide if they are going to buy or not buy the book, because everybody has their own opinion, but I will try to let you know why I had mine. Again, non-spoiler, but to do that, I do want to start out by saying I am not a lifelong X-Men reader. I had fully jumped in with the Krakoa era with Hickman's stuff. I tried to stick with it, and by the end of the first Hellfire Gala, I had bailed. I ended up bailing at that point, didn't read for a while, but then I ended up reading again when we kind of knew that the Krakoa era was ending. I wanted to see how it ended. I caught up on some of the books. Some were not worth catching up on, but that is pretty much my big X-Men stuff. I also am reading currently the Grant Morrison X-Men deal, but you're going to find out that might be more important than anything in this issue. And again, it's Jed MacKay writing, and he has a team of Cyclops, Beast, Psylocke, Kid Omega, Temper, Magic, and Juggernaut. There's also a lot of other characters that show up in the issue, but that is the main roster. And I know that some people were rolling their eyes, or very wary of having Juggernaut on the team. I'll tell you, it's not like he's ruining anything, but he kind of comes off as more comedy relief than anything else. And then is in the background, I think that one of the things that most people see in this issue is that there are some characters that don't have enough space to do anything. Psylocke doesn't do a hell of a lot in this issue. Kid Omega, he talks a little but doesn't do a lot. Temper actually talks to Kid Omega. You just have that going back and forth. And Juggernaut and Magic are kind of a cop buddy team type deal, where they're like a strike force among themselves. They do a lot of damage, but really what this whole issue does is it ends up having Jed MacKay seemingly trying to prove to everybody that he knows X-Men lore. There's a lot of deep dives. There's a lot of things that probably went over my head, but in the meantime, a lot of Grant Morrison stuff would actually shock me that it had, but it didn't really affect anything much. So if you're there, oh my God, I never read the new X-Men. I never read the Grant Morrison stuff. It doesn't matter that you didn't. It doesn't matter. It ends up being things just mentioned. And that's one of the things that I thought in this. And overall, I think that the script, I think most people will agree, it's a little clunky. It's a little clunky for this first issue there. Again, there's a lot of characters that show up, and it seems like they're forced into talking about old X-Men lore, also saying things that felt like it was supposed to be recap, but it should have been more natural. The idea of somebody walking into a room and pronouncing what they have done in the past, things like that. One of the big things that I thought kind of got me was Wolverine ends up being in the issue, and he ends up getting hurt. And he is talking to Cyclops and a bunch of the other characters. I mean, these characters, tell me if I'm wrong, they kind of know Wolverine. And he has to tell them that he has a healing factor in a weird way. So I think that Jed MacKay, what he's trying to do is make this very new reader jumping on point deal. But then with that, mention stuff, from Grant Morrison, stuff that people who are jumping on new probably would not end up, knowing. So it's kind of that weird back and forth. And there's a 2-part story. One of the parts is Beast giving a tour of the new X-Men base. And there is some crazy things about that. There's a twist to that I won't tell you. That's a spoiler. But then the other bit is Cyclops, Psylocke, Kid Omega, Temper, Magic, and Juggernaut going to a compound to save Wolverine and do some other stuff while they are there. And it's just weird. I mean, there is one scene also with Wolverine where he just starts rattling off all the psychic mutant characters, and it just felt weird the way it was. It felt less in the scene and more of, hey, look, I know these characters. And I think that Jed MacKay, the way he writes this, he may be a little bit wary of jumping on something as big as the X-Men. It's something that he thinks the fandom is really big on, knowing the past, and they are. I mean, most comic fans are in general, but I think that he has this thing going where he really wants to say, like, hey, look, I also read the Grant Morrison stuff. Hey, look, I also read that. I read that. And it just gets a little bit clunky. The other part of this is Ryan Stegman's art. And I'm a huge Ryan Stegman fan. Now, this is the other thing I will tell you before I say anything about the art. This is a lower res copy that I get. I get the review copies from Marvel. So it will look crisper. It'll look better once I get the real copy. But in it, there's a bit of a weird play. I think Ryan Stegman is getting used to the characters and maybe how to draw some of the things. There are characters like Beast that kind of look odd at points. And then everything gets really cartoony at one point, but then kind of gets back to gritty. And I think that he is trying to get his base of what he wants to do. And I'm sure he will. I think Ryan Stegman's great. If you don't like Ryan Stegman, then you may have a problem with it, but I don't know why anybody wouldn't like him. But like I said, when you go through this issue, there's not much of a overall story except save Wolverine and walk around giving a walking tour of the new base. But it does get everybody kind of up to speed a bit. There is mentions of Krakoa. There's actually a plot that involves some things with Orcus and stuff like that, but not heavy as I was afraid. And if you didn't read the Krakoa era, or you dropped off like I did, you're not really going to be missing much. It's just kind of there, so it works into the progression and the timeline and things like that. You can't just cut it off at the knees and say it never existed, so you have that going on. But yeah, you have a bunch of other characters than the ones that are announced on the roster and things as well. But some are just kind of fan favorite characters that pop up, say hello, and then go about their business. So overall, just as an overall initial reaction to the first issue, I can't say that I wasn't a bit disappointed, but I also think that I had such high expectations for one first issue. But in that, again, I read this issue and I thought it was going to be like, oh my God, this is a classic and I can't wait. This is going to be a classic run. This is going to be all this. I didn't really get that feeling by the end of it. I got the feeling of, okay, this is decent. This is okay. I hope that some of the weird things get ironed out. I hope that going forward, it continues to get better because this isn't bad. But I just, again, my expectations were so high. And I realized that by the end, that maybe they were too high for, something that is just starting out like this. But again, I'm not going to say anything crazy here, but with the whole new From the Ashes deal, the X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men, those two have to hit. They have to hit good, hard, and whatever. X-Force, then you go, and then after that, each one, is a little lesser on the deal. Exceptional X-Men by Eve Ewing. I'm not expecting much from it. So maybe she'll actually really impress me, or something like NYX, Lansing and Kelly. I'm expecting nothing from. So maybe that will be a pleasant surprise. And I am saying to everybody in this, don't go into this it's almost like I'm telling you, please don't be like me. But I think if you're going into this thinking, okay, Krakoa, oh my God, that ended all this when Hickman left, it was awful. Now here comes our savior, and this is going to be, you might be disappointed. But if you're going into it thinking, all right, I need a cool team. I want to see what's going on, and maybe this could be something that would develop into something really cool. I think that you'll like it a little more, and that you'll say, okay, I could see this happening. And Jed MacKay, such a nice guy, and people do seem to love him. I'm not liking Blood Hunt. I look at this Blood Hunt event, and I said it on a podcast or a video at one point, that I thought in my mind, Jed MacKay was just about to, go up a level in the whole comic deal, the writer's deal. But you have to have an event. He's having an event. If Blood Hunt hits and is great, he is now on that upper level. It didn't hit. He's kind of still there with the guy of, hey, he does a good Moon Knight. I actually really like his Black Cat stuff. But then he's also getting the opportunity. X-Men. So this is another one that can get him up. And I still think he's kind of just teetering on that level with this. But again, I think that him and Ryan Stegman will get used to the lay of the land. This feels like, okay, we have to do some extra exposition to get people, on board and things like that. So again, I know I'm rambling. I was going to do this last night as I'm recording this now. And I tried like 50. One time I think I fell asleep right in the middle of it. It was like 2 a.m. when I was trying to do it. And I hadn't eaten all day and I hadn't slept and I was really out of it. I was wacky. So I decided to actually go to sleep. And when I woke up, I had a meal. And now here we are. Here we are. I'm going to leave all of you with, let me know what you think. I know that most people haven't read the issue, but even if you have to come back after you read it and tell me how you feel, I should have a review of it as well. This is just to get everybody my thoughts and see what you're feeling. I'm sorry that I'm not just going to tell people, hey, don't buy it, because I would never do that. And I wouldn't say you have to buy it if I didn't think that it was, a little wonky at points. And I think this is really one of that mid-level deals that you're going to have to decide for yourself. Some people will probably love it. Some people will probably hate it. I'm kind of in the middle. My score is kind of in the middle of that. So I hope that this is something that helps you out a little, the ambiguous help that I'm giving, but I hope you enjoyed the little sneak peek. Like I said, I wanted to keep it spoiler free because there are a bunch of spoilers that I think people may enjoy. So with all of that, thanks. Let me know whatever in the comments. You could just, drop a line and ask how I am or something like that. But with all that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do as well. And if you would love to go and support maybe us and go over to our Patreon, it's patreon.com/weirdscience. There's a link to click right on the upper left-hand corner of your screen right now. And you could go there and get a 7-day free trial. And it's not just you supporting us. We end up having a ton, and I mean a ton, of comic book shows, DC, Marvel, indie, manga, anything you can imagine. We have a bunch of things. And as I said, we're even going through Grant Morrison's X-Men at points, all these sort of things. So check it out. Check it out. And I will talk to you all later.